All right, well, I think we'll get started. I'm we will go through the this PowerPoint. As we go through the PowerPoint, we'll stop and ask some poll questions that folks on the webinar can answer, and we'll get live results in real time on those poll questions. And then when we get to the end, we'll use the Q&A function on Zoom in order to have a little interactive session. So, welcome to Finding Your Way in Tysons, a wayfinding lunch and learn. I hope that everyone is having some lunch at their desk while we go through this. Um, I will do a quick introduction between myself and Yi, and then we'll start moving into the PowerPoint. So, my name is Jason Zog, and I am the Vice President of Placemaking and Transportation for the Tysons Community Alliance. And I'll let Yi introduce herself.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you everyone who joined us for the Launch and Learn today. And I'm E. I'm with Jason in our placemaking and transportation team, trying to elevate our Tysons for people who live, stay, and play here. And we're really excited to have you all here joining us today for the webinar.
Great. All right, since Yi is managing the slides, can you go to the next slide?
Yes.
All right, so our agenda is going to be just a quick introduction to the TCA, if you are not familiar with this already. Why wayfinding matters, why is it useful? Uh, TCA's approach to wayfinding, and then we'll go through four different wayfinding initiatives. Next slide. So if you're not familiar with the TCA is a place management organization. We use the phrase PMO for short. Um, we were created about a little over 2 years ago to support the community's growth and evolution. The comprehensive plan to really build a densified urban environment in Tysons around the four metro stations was passed over 10 years ago. And you know, this type of organization was actually mentioned in the comp plan as sort of an implementation entity. If you're familiar with business improvement districts in DC, there are many bids in DC, the Georgetown bid and the Southwest bid and the NOMA bid. We are very similar to that type of organization. Um, so we partner with residents and businesses and developers, every county agency you could think of, and VDOT as a major stakeholder at the state level to improve mobility and public spaces and economic vitality and really the overall experience. Next slide. If you go to our website, you can actually download our TCA strategic plan, but you can also download the placemaking framework that was created about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. And I think during that placemaking framework process, which involved quite a number of public meetings, um, we really, through that feedback, we understood that Tysons is big and complex. Tysons is about 3.5 square miles. When you look at some of the business improvement districts in DC, those are significantly smaller than that, sometimes less than a square mile. But Tysons is trying to be a more urban environment centered around the four metro stations. So multimodal walking, biking, transit, and driving. All of that is still evolving. So wayfinding can help us build out that world-class urban environment by sort of reinforcing that you're allowed to go certain places. There are a lot of like wonderful, I like to say like secret trails that a lot of people don't know about in Tysons. And there are public spaces that are actually on private property. We call them POPs, privately owned public spaces. And sometimes it can be a little bit unclear whether or not the public is allowed in those spaces or on those trails. And wayfinding helps really signify that you are allowed there. Wayfinding can improve safety because it's directing you where you want to go and not in some other direction. It encourages and sort of reinforces, creates a positive reinforcement cycle for walking and biking and transit use. Um, and it can support businesses and destinations that the wayfinding is pointing to, and it really does create a single recognizable district identity. Next slide. So we started a Tyson's Wayfinding initiative last year, and you know, It involves a lot of different types of wayfinding. We are just getting underway with the initial types of wayfinding that I'll go through in the first couple of slides. But our wayfinding strategy really focuses on making sure that the directionality is clear, that we have a single unified look that looks extremely professional. Um, that it is flexible and can change as Tyson's changes. So we're making sure that those destinations, the name of that destination might change, or what we're pointing to might change in the future. So they are changeable in the future. And that we're delivering these wayfinding signs through public-private partnerships. In some cases, we have wayfinding signs out there that are on public property. In other cases, we have wayfinding signs on private property. Um, so we'll go to the next slide. So let's do some initial poll questions before we dive into our specific wayfinding projects. So we're going to have two poll questions for each time we put a poll up. I'll give everybody a minute to respond to it.
Um, Sorry, I think there should be a three question. So if the
Okay.
yeah, if the TCA staff can check, there should be the three pool questions about when you are moving around Tysons today. What do you need most for the wayfinding? So if the TCA staff can quickly change the poll. Sorry about that.
There we go. Perfect.
Yes.
These
Perfect.
are the initial poll questions. Sorry about that. All right. I think we can probably end the voting process. All right. So it looks like the first question, uh, when you're moving around Tysons today, how easy is it to find your way? We had about 50% of the people who responded saying somewhat difficult, and the remaining saying somewhat easy or very easy. Then, when do you most need wayfinding help in Tysons? 71% said when going between destinations. 43% were split between when I'm new to an area or when exiting metro or parking. And then the last question, what information is most helpful to you on wayfinding signs? And the vast majority of folks, 86% said direction arrows orientation, and then 14% said major landmarks and buildings. So that's very interesting. Thanks. All right, so I'll dive into our first project. We actually implemented this project already, and the signs were in place by June of last year. You can actually go out and see some of these. So we started our wayfinding program with trail wayfinding signs in the summer of last year. And that was intended to help people navigate Tyson's growing trail network. I said before, there's this beautiful sort of secret network of trails in Tyson's that a lot of people, especially if you're new to Tyson's, didn't know about. And typically, when I take people back on these trails, they're just amazed that just less than a mile away is, a very large mall or the metro station. When you're immersed in these trails, you really feel like you're in the wilderness. And so directing people to these trails as well as directing where they need to go when they're on the trails was our primary goal here. So 9 signs were installed in June, and we do have additional signs that we'd like to put up for additional trails in Tysons sometime in the future. And you can see these on the map in the orange. So these trailway finding signs came in 2 different varieties. Maybe in the future, there will be even more varieties of these signs, more form factors. So our design on the left is what we call a totem sign, and this focuses on really establishing that Tyson's brand and that Tyson's identity, so that you understand and know that you are in this 3.5 square mile area called Tyson's. It really gives you, larger lettering. I like to put these at the beginning and the end of a segment of trail so that someone knows, oh, there's something here that I should go see. Or once you're actually on the trail and you're already walking on the trail, it makes a little bit more sense to install something that's a little bit more like the one on the right, that is a little bit smaller in stature, has slightly smaller lettering, but you don't need, once you're on the trail, you're already on it, you don't need quite as much detail. Um, So this is actually a great photo of a day when I took a group of folks out to the trail system that they'd worked here in the Tysons area for years, and none of them had actually been on any of the trails in Tysons. So it was really nice to be able to show them where these trails are, and we stopped and talked about the signage. So again, we installed 9 of these located on sort of the core central trail corridor, and we got some initial positive feedback about these trails being easier to navigate, understanding the local connections, finding out that there was even a butterfly garden they didn't know about, um, and we hope to expand these and refine these in the future. Next slide. So we'll ask some poll questions about this specific project. All right, your 2 poll questions are up, so I'll give you a minute to answer those. All right, I think we can close the poll and check out our answers. All right, so what do you primarily use trail signs for? Um, there was a pretty even split between confirming I'm on the right path. That's great because we very much expected a lot of these signs to be sort of this breadcrumb that is giving you and boosting you confidence that you're in the right location on the right path. Finding connections to destinations and estimating your walking time. That's great. Um, Question number 2, where would additional trailway finding be most helpful? So it looks like 90% of people said connections to streets or destinations. So we do spend a lot of time making sure that we put the streets on, we put the metro stations on there, and we direct people toward those things. Intersections between trails, that's important. Trail entrances, metro stations. Yeah, thank you.
Great, thank you. So I will introduce the next project that we have, which is slightly different from the trail signs, but as you can see with the similar brand elements that we have of the Tyson's new branding, this 3D structural signs is very meant to function as a landmarks. So the elements that you can spot from the distance will really help you to orient yourself in Tysons. And they are especially useful in a large kind of open and complex spaces where the trail signs like a little bit like lower and smaller scales of signs that's not enough for the space. And just a note, we are still working on finalizing the signs, so it may change depending on our partners and funding and also locations situation. So we have two options. We designed the first option to be more flexible, meaning they can be relocated in different locations. It's the kind of the foundation that's more flexible to change, and it has a really strong vertical presence. It has lighting integrated in here, which can help with visibility from the day to night. And this options works pretty well in the spaces where the long-term site conditions may still be evolving. And on the back of the signs, we also want to make sure that we can have, oh, sorry, wrong one. On the back of the signs, we also still want to make sure that we have the branding and messaging to be customized so that we can very much like help to build up the messaging for the contest depends on the build environment. And as you can see, this is very much layered and angled components which create this like depth and add the visual interest. The second options is a more permanent installation. It has this like sculptural quality. So it's a little bit abstract than the first sign. But we want the design to like anchor the key locations, such as some activity centers, a major mixed use like development centers and public spaces. The option two also has the lighting options, but the highlight for this kind of design is the perforated lettering. So meaning during the daytime, it will be the purplish color, but in the night, once the illumination comes out, it will be the white color. So it will give you a feeling of the dynamics while still remain like legible. And those options emphasize on the placemaking and identity alongside of the wayfinding. Um, Both options are fully designed right now, but as I said, we are working with our developers and private property owners to identify the sites and also the changes of the sign itself to make sure it's aligned with the built environment and the context of the place. And we want to make sure it can maintain as part of the future development or as the public space improved. So I'm going to ask all the attendees to help with two more questions that you will have for the 3D structural sign. First question is, where do you think a large 3D wayfinding signs add the most value? And the second one is, what should 3D structural wayfinding signs prioritize? So we'll give people a minute to choose the best choice they have. Cool. I think we can close the poll and see what the people. Okay, where is? Okay, cool. Cool. So everybody has different opinions, and there is definitely more focus on the transit hub for the 3D wayfinding signs to add the value in the community. For the second questions, I think a majority of people prioritize the clear directions, which we will actually talk about in our next projects that I think is a great wayfinding project that actually helps with this clear goal. So I'm just gonna go ahead and start the next slide. So everybody wants a clear direction and also find our wayfinding signs next to the transit hub. And this is our next project, which definitely helps people to find and to orient themselves once they exit a metro stations in Tysons. As Jason mentioned, there are four metro stations in our service areas, and there are some old kiosks. If you use metro frequently, you should probably notice that old kiosk that our president organization has put it over there. But our goal for this project is to upgrade that and also create instant physical reference point that help people to understand where they are and what's nearby. So the kiosk itself, it's a prominent wayfinding structure, and we can find other examples in other cities like Boston, London, and Toronto. The vertical kind of structure make people easy to notice in this busy station areas, and this kiosk also designed to be illuminated. So the illuminated branding will reinforce the Tyson's identity, while the contents really focusing on helping people to find the key destinations, directions, and walking times. The lighting is the key considerations here, especially given people come to the mall during the evening time and also just like commute back to after work back to their home and in the winter times. So the goal is for people to get the information they need in a short amount of time. We also want to make sure that we have this visual presentation of the neighborhood and especially the local areas of each suburbs in Tysons. So the map that we have is designed at a pedestrian scale. So it highlights the walkable routes, landmarks, unique destinations in Tysons with a clear "you are here" marker, and the graphic styles is aligns with our wayfinding system. So your experience of using this will be consistent across different sign types. This project we are working on right now is currently in design and permitting. So we work pretty closely with our partners in the county and in WMATA, trying to review the locations and making sure the design is consistent with the code in both county and in WMATA standard. So we are interested in using the signs to improve the walkability and helping to make the transit-oriented move more intuitive. And I will ask our TCA staff to help us answer a little bit more questions regarding to the metro obelisks. So the first question is, when exiting a metro station, what would help you the most? And the second question is, when exiting a metro station, what information do you look for first? We are literally designing this right now, so it's a way for you to answer the questions and provide us a feedback. So we actually can incorporate your feedback to improve our design for the obelisks. And we'll give people another 30 seconds. Great. Let's see what people choose for those two answers. So for the first question, the help that the metro obelisks can help, I guess, is also provide a very clear directions to the measured destinations. And that's also what we prioritize when we design our map. And that will still be our priority in the upcoming like refinement for the map elements. And the second question is, when exiting a metro station, what information do you look for first? And I think a majority of people choose maps of the surrounding areas. So you got it. We are working on the maps. And we'll definitely prioritize the information and details on the maps. And of course, nearby destinations that were highlighted on the kiosk for sure. Cool. Thank you. And I'll hand back to Jason.
All right, thank you, Yi. Um, so the next and last wayfinding related project that we're highlighting here today is the replacement of the water tower sign. So this is one of the most recognizable landmarks that we can strengthen the identity of Tysons and gain significant visibility for the Tysons brand. This logo, the prior logo by the Tysons partnership was placed up there over 10 years ago. Um, and we have designed something that's fitting the new sort of Tysons look and feel. And this will probably last another maybe 5 years, 5 to 7 years. We know from the Water Authority that they plan to do a complete sandblasting and repainting of the water tower somewhere in the 2030 to 2032 timeframe. So this will last a good long while to hold us over until that more complete um, renovation of the water tower. But I'm hoping that folks, now that they've seen a lot of these projects, the water tower might not seem like a wayfinding sign, but wayfinding can be defined in a lot of different ways. And it can be not just a sign at a metro station with a map and an arrow, but it can also be landmarks and visual cues. And things like the water tower and things like that sort of 3D structural sign that you can kind of take an Instagram picture with are leaning a little bit more toward that landmark and visual cue that kind of establishes where you are in space and time. I think I have a few more water tower slides that we can go through. So this design fits exactly over the top of the old logo, so it doesn't increase or really change the size at all. Features the Tyson's This Way Up wordmark next to some of our brand shapes to kind of get that look and feel in there. Um, and this will probably be applied using vinyl that will be that will stick directly over the prior logo. And it really refreshes one of the most significant landmarks in the community. It's actually at one of the highest points in Tysons and the highest point in the county. It'll be visible from 123 and 7. You can see here on this map the northeast side and the southwest side. So depending on which direction you're coming from, you'll be able to see it in multiple directions. So this is again a short-term upgrade to what's there until the Water Authority does a full repaint of the water tower. We'll have to come up with something different in the future. Uh, and we've gotten a lot of feedback that the water tower has strong recognition. People know that as a Tyson's landmark. So we're using it to reinforce that identity and visibility, um, and those visual cues that are part of wayfinding. Next slide. So we'll do some poll questions related to this specific project before we move into Q&A. All right, so we have our two poll questions up right now, and I'll give everybody 30 to 40 seconds to answer those questions. All right, I think we can probably close the poll. Okay, first question was, how visible do you think the water tower should be as a wayfinding feature? And 80% of people said highly visible from a distance. That's good because I think the logo is sized so that you can see it from a distance, so that you can see it whether you're walking, biking, or driving at 40 miles per hour. You'll be able to see it. And then second question, what role should the water tower play in Tyson's over the next 5 to 10 years? About 50% of people said all the above. 30% said a defining visual landmark, a symbol of Tyson's identity. So Yeah, I think that's how we feel too. I think we can close that poll and go to the next set of slides. So yeah, we wanted, stay involved with the TCA on wayfinding. You can go to the placemaking section, the placemaking department section of our website and see more projects that we're working on. Um, some of them are wayfinding, some of them are placemaking that we haven't gone over here today. If you are interested in seeing the wayfinding sign program expand to other properties and you happen to be a property owner who is interested in having one on a trail of yours or other part of your property, definitely contact us and let us know, and we can meet with you and work that out. Same for the 3D structural public realm sign, which is kind of that the one that has the Tysons brand and logo that you take an Instagram picture with. Happy to see that expand to many parts of Tysons simultaneously. But definitely, follow our social media and you can be informed of upcoming installations and ribbon cuttings of some of the work that we're doing. So now we will go into the webinar Q&A where we will use the Q&A button that's at probably at the bottom of most of your screens, is where we're going to take Q&A. So you can submit your questions and only us on the panel will be able to read them, and we will uh, dive through, dive in. And we might not be able to answer all of them if we get a lot. All right, I have not seen any questions so far. I can give it another 30 seconds or so. And by the way, this webinar is recorded and will be up online in case you want to go back and take a look at any of the pictures that we went through. Um, feel free to do that. And some of the projects that we were talking about are already have detailed project websites set up on our site. You just have to go to the placemaking department or the transportation department and check those out. All right. So we've got one question in here that I'll answer live. Will the obelisk go in at all four metro stations? And yes, we are planning on having those be installed at all four metro stations. Initially, when we started scoping the project, we had planned on doing only one side of the four metro stations in this year, and then doing the other side of the metro stations in the next year. But we are actively right now, like literally this week, trying to figure out if we may actually be able to cover both the north entrance and the south entrance at all four metro stations all at one time, which I think would be um, the preferable way to do it if we can figure that out. All right, we've got one more question. How do you measure the effectiveness of a wayfinding system beyond navigation, specifically in terms of dwell time, economic impact, reinforcing place identity? So there are ways you can do that. I think that it can be a little bit time intensive or staff intensive because you can basically do a public life study, or what urban planners like me like to call a public life study, where you and or your colleagues station yourself outside of that physical space, whether it's a set of table and chairs you're trying to study or a wayfinding sign you're trying to study, or you set up a little camera and you sort of record people's interactions with that table and chairs or that wayfinding sign, and count the number of times that someone actually dwelled there, how long they dwelled there, um, how many people just walk straight past it without looking at it. And then in terms of the sort of effectiveness of the branding on all of these systems, I think you need to measure that a little bit more longitudinally over a long period of time, with a perception study of some kind. But I think that given that Tyson's is 3.5 square miles and we're really rolling this out over 3.5 square miles fairly slowly over the years, it's going to take a long time to really see a dent in that perception study.
And I also want to add on that. So our team also has been developed like a KPI system trying to track all the changes and impacts for the placemaking project that we've been doing. And I mean, we have specific goals to measure like different area. I think in terms of the like question that you mentioned about like the well time, um, it can be it can be like how actively we use the like of the map system. And we're thinking about, like having sort of like QR code to put there to kind of helping people once we have the map like updated, we may have the QR code and that QR code, the numbers of scan will be able to like showcase how many times people was using it. And also we are always in Tysons, so we hear from people, the feedback from people. I think also kind of indicate how effective our wayfinding system is, and also just like making any adjustment based on people's feedback.
Yeah, I'll reinforce the trail counters thing. Every planning agency across the country uses trail counters. National Park Service uses trail counters on all their trails, um, and so does city parks and county parks. But being able to see the before and after on the volume of people on a trail, there might not be a it might be difficult to draw a direct correlation, but it's there. So I'm seeing a couple other questions. Let's see. How should rapidly urbanizing districts integrate wayfinding into long-term comprehensive planning rather than treating it as a standalone design intervention? It is it's a fair question. I think that uh, it is something that is often seen as sort of a nice to have, but when you really analyze sort of what makes a world class. I know a lot of people throw out the term world class, and it doesn't carry a tremendous amount of meaning, but when you really start to sit down and think about the difference between a world-class urban environment and a not world-class urban environment, those world-class downtowns that we all go on vacation to, that we have, if you've been to New York City, if you've been to London, Toronto, you will see these world-class downtowns have really comprehensive, professionally designed wayfinding systems that are very similar to what we're rolling out at the metro stations. And so I think that it can be sort of referenced in, comprehensive planning documents. It can be referenced in, a lot of long-term 30,000 foot level planning documents, but often it's a organization like a place management organization like us that ends up being the ones to implement it because we're that sort of neutral third party we're not an individual private developer that focuses on just one property, who has an interest in just one property. And wayfinding might be very often is outside of the realm of a city budget or a county budget, and is certainly typically not something that's in a state budget. So, place management organizations very often across the country are the ones who end up implementing these types of things, because we're sort of uh, in that in between the public and private, but really representing the interests of the public in the sense that we're making the public realm more accessible and more navigable to everybody. Next question is, will there be promotion via social media, newsletter, et cetera, for rolling these wayfinding projects out? Yes, we will certainly, when we get a little bit closer on some of them to getting our permits, I think we'll feel a lot more comfortable doing more social media promotion and putting in newsletters. I think that, a couple of these are on our website already because we're very far along in the process, but a couple of these we're sort of showcasing for the very first time to the public today, because we haven't gotten all the required permits from WMATA or VDOT or whatever the agencies are that we need to get the permits from. And I think we will definitely be promoting them more in the future.
And as Jason mentioned, we do have some web pages for some of our projects, not all of them, but like the trail wayfinding signs are over there. So if people are interested in, you can go on the website. There's also a survey that you can fill it out to provide your feedback and comments of the existing trail signs. But we will keep people posted. The TCA, the Tysons Community Alliance, have the monthly newsletter. And if we have any like progress and update, we will work with our marketing and comms team to highlight those progress and updates for the people who are interested in this.
Right. Those are, I believe, the final questions. I don't see any more. Give anybody another 20 seconds if they want. No more questions? Okay, my host who's managing the questions says there are no more questions. So I will end the conversation here, and we will put this recording up on our YouTube page, the TCA YouTube page, and we hope that we can do more of these lunch and learn style webinars about more of our projects in the future. And really thank everybody for joining us. Hope you ate a great lunch while you were listening to our conversation here. And thanks for answering the poll questions. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.